I don't give a damn what y'all say. Ain't nothing natural about no monogamy.
You know what? You can do both of us a real big favor. Just come over to my crib and get your shit.
Stop.
I have to admit, I have a rather unhealthy addiction to social audio apps, especially after the pandemic. Lots of arguing going on, but sometimes the conversations about relationships on the Black side of these platforms can get my mind to start thinking about why the young people of the Black community, my community, struggle so much with figuring out how to do life. I've noticed for a long time that the men in particular are the most reluctant out of all races of men to marry, especially the really successful so-called high-value ones. In fact, according to Professor Ralph Richard Banks, author of Is Marriage for White People, reports that when Black men reach the magic salary threshold of $100,000 or more, they are less likely to marry when men of other races in that cohort are more likely to start shopping for engagement rings once they get there. Black women aren't off the hook either, with many increasingly opting to remain single and die with a cat named Bear. But honestly, can we blame them? I'm unfortunately part of the generation of latchkey kids who became teens and young adults locked and loaded to go buck wild when mom and dad were away. Under our watch, the out-of-wedlock rate in the Black community soared to over 70%. So did the teen pregnancy rate. We now have 3 generations of a large group of us never seeing anyone actually married to their actual parents. This, of course, is bound to cause some chaos in relationships, and I can't really blame these kids for wanting to avoid them altogether. So I decided that I was going to do some digging and found a very interesting study about Black college students and attachment styles. The researchers concluded that there's a very disturbing amount of kids that they questioned had avoidant attachment, and specifically dismissive avoidant. We'll talk about that more later. The article, published in the International Journal of Psychological Studies, found that African American college students are more likely to exhibit avoidant attachment styles compared to their peers from other ethnic groups. This means that many young Black adults may struggle with emotional closeness, trust, and intimacy in their relationships. This is especially concerning when we consider the broader context of our community: high rates of out-of-wedlock births, and a majority of Black households headed by single parents. Now, before we go any further, let me explain what attachment theory is from the best of my non-degreed ability. Attachment styles are the emotional bonds we form with others, and they are shaped by our earliest experiences, primarily with our parents or caregivers. These styles include secure, avoidant, anxious, and dismissing avoidant attachments. Ideally, you want secure attachment. That's what we want, a healthy balance of independence and closeness in relationships. So picture this: you're a toddler of a single parent who has to do double duty as a provider and nurturer, which is exhausting and stressful. They drop you off at daycare at 7 a.m., doesn't come back until almost 7 at night. But you're 4. You have needs. Sure, you're well fed, clothed, and housed, but the emotional needs you have after your caregiver has been working for 12 hours might not be to your satisfaction. After an extended period of time, you realize that you're on your own, and in that department, you just better figure it out for yourself and depend on yourself. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how a needy toddler becomes a college student with avoidant attachment. Now think about how huge our out-of-wedlock rate is and how it's the coal fueling the runaway train. This means that they may struggle with intimacy, find it difficult to trust others, and often prefer to be emotionally distant.
Ah, my little darling, it is love at first sight, is it not? No? Do not come with me to the Casbah. We shall make beautiful music together right here.
Unfortunately, this avoidant attachment can carry into adulthood, affecting how they form and maintain romantic relationships. When we connect the dots, it becomes clear that these early attachment issues might be a significant factor in the lower marriage rates we're seeing in our community. If you don't feel comfortable depending on someone or letting them depend on you, how can you build a lasting partnership? How can you trust and love if you've been conditioned to avoid it?
My mom died when I was 3. My dad left the day after my 5th birthday, and somehow I knew I'd never see him again.
In our community, where so many children are raised by single parents, the risk of developing an avoidant attachment style increases. Single parents often have to juggle multiple roles, and while they do the best they can, the lack of consistent two-parent presence can sometimes lead to emotional gaps. These gaps may translate into attachment issues that follow children into adulthood. Now back to the study. At almost half, 45.7% of the 129 student respondents had avoidant style. But it gets even worse. Of that category, 24% of that group were identified as dismissive avoidant. I decided to look up how bad that actually was. And here's what dismissive avoidance entails. And let me know if you recognize your boyfriend or your girlfriend or maybe yourself. Emotional distance. People with dismissive avoidant attachment style often keep emotional distance in relationships. They may struggle to express their feelings or avoid discussing emotions altogether. They can create barriers to forming deep, meaningful connections with others. Independence and self-reliance. These individuals value their independence highly and often see relying on others as a sign of weakness. They might avoid asking for help, even if it's needed, and prefer to handle things on their own. Avoidance of intimacy. Dismissive avoidants tend to be uncomfortable with too much closeness or emotional dependency in relationships. They might pull away when relationships start to become more intimate or serious as they fear losing their autonomy. Downplaying the importance of relationships. This attachment style is associated with downplaying the significance of relationships. Dismissive avoidants might convince themselves that they don't need close relationships or that they are not important, which can lead to superficial or short-term connections. Positive self-view and negative view of others. This one really surprised me. People with dismissive avoidant attachment often have a positive view of themselves, but a negative or distrustful view of others. They may believe that others are unreliable or that relationships are burdensome. Difficulty with commitment. Due to their discomfort with closeness, individuals with this attachment style may have difficulty committing to long-term relationships. They might be more likely to avoid commitment altogether or to leave relationships when they start to demand more emotional involvement. Impact on relationships. In romantic relationships, dismissive avoidants might seem aloof or emotionally unavailable. Their partners might feel neglected or unimportant, leading to conflicts or dissatisfaction. Over time, this attachment style can contribute to difficulties in maintaining long-term stable relationships. But now, before you single mother-hating folks come in here and think that this is an attack solely on Black women, understand how biology works. She can't make a baby without you giving her a very special ingredient. And honestly, blaming single moms is played out, you guys. It is what it is. So now we just have to figure out what we're going to do about it. So Pinkies, what do you think? Have you ever heard of the connection between attachment styles and our poor relationship outcomes? For me, things are starting to make a lot of sense. And stay tuned because next week, I'll be going down the very long rabbit hole about new data on Black women's singlehood in 2024 being 67.5%, more than a 20-point jump since 2006. The details about why this is happening probably will surprise you. Be sure to like the video and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when that video drops. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep it pink.